If you guys are ready to get in the scriptures, go ahead and turn to Ephesians chapter 2, verse 19. That's where we're going to be camped out for the majority of this morning. And while you're turning there, I just wanted to share a quick story with you guys. So like Miss Bonnie mentioned, I've been leading the young adults ministry for the past couple months. We're New Life Young Adults, a.k.a. NLYA. And one of our major sayings around NLYA is home away from home. It's kind of like a tag that we have. We hashtag it on our posts. We put it on our t-shirts. It's on my shirt right now. Home away from home. The reason for that being is that most of the young adults at this church aren't actually from Corpus Christi. For whatever reason, God has brought them to this city, whether it be school, whether it be a job, whether it be the military. Most of us aren't from this city, yet all of us have a story, have a moment where Corpus Christi, where New Life Church became our home away from home. So this is mine. My freshman year of college, I had gotten a couple months into the semester, and I was feeling really, really good about this whole being away from home, being on my own. I had my class schedule figured out. I knew where to go to eat. I had my books. I thought I had the adult thing on lock. I thought I had it figured out. I felt very confident. I started to feel very independent. Even though I was far away from my family, I didn't have any family in Corpus Christi. They were all in the Dallas area. I felt good. I felt like I could do this whole thing on my own, this whole college, young adult, being away from home thing. And then I got sick. And it was the first time in my life where I had been sick, where I got a cold or a flu or something, and I didn't have my mama to take care of me. There was no plan for this. I hadn't planned for this. There was no backup plan. I'd never been in this situation. And it was bad too. I had headaches. I had nausea. I was bedridden. I could hardly move. I couldn't go to class. I couldn't do anything for myself. I was totally helpless. And while I was laying there in bed feeling sorry for myself, I get a call from Zane Sturm. Now most of you know Zane as Pastor Zane of South Campus, and they're having their grand opening today, and we're so excited for them, and we're so expectant for what God's going to do in that congregation, in that new building. But back then, he was just Zane. He was just Zane. He was an engineer. He was working full time at Flint Hills, and he was leading a life group that I attended. He was my life group leader, and he was just calling to check up on me to see how my week was going. And he asked me if I what I was up to and if I wanted to get lunch. And I said, oh man, no, I would love to, but I can't, man. I feel terrible. I'm bedridden. I can't even go to class. I am sick. I got to take a rain check on this one, bro. And he says, as soon as he heard that, the tone of his voice completely changed. He went from mellow to completely urgent. He said, you're sick. What? You're sick? Okay, well, do you need me to take you to the doctor? Do you need me to bring you some medicine? Can I bring you food? What do you need? What do you need? What can I do for you? And I remember thinking like, bro, chill. Like, I just met you like 2 months ago. Like, you don't know me like that. Like you do not have to do any of that for me. But I didn't tell him any of that. And I wanted to be nice. I didn't want to be rude. So I said, yeah, I mean, I could use some water. Sure, maybe you could bring me some water. And he says, water? Okay, I got you. Hangs up the phone. Not 15 minutes go by before he's at the front door of my dorm with a full case of Ozarka over his shoulder. See, I felt so helpless in the moment of being sick. It made me homesick. It made me miss my mom. It made me feel so helpless because I felt like I had no family around me to take care of me. But it was in that moment that I realized I did have family in Corpus Christi. And I had a family at New Life Church. And that was the moment for me that Corpus Christi and New Life Church became my home away from home. That was the moment that God had shown me that I had a family in this city. And us talking about family, we're gonna look at Ephesians 2:19. This is gonna be our base passage. It says, you are members of God's very own family, citizens of God's country, and you belong in God's household with every other Christian. See what this is talking about, this idea of being a Christian or being in a church, as being part of a family, is the idea that our relationship with Christ is, though it's deeply personal, it was never meant to be private, right? It's deeply personal, but it was never meant to be private. In God's family, we're connected to every believer across all time, everywhere. Meaning that we're connected to every believer on the planet, meaning we're connected to every believer in this country, meaning we're connected to every believer in this state, in this city, in this building. The Bible references our connection a number of ways. It says that we're put together, that we're joined together, that we're built together, that we're members together, we're heirs together, fitted together, and held together. Can you say amen? I think we're in this together. See, following Christ doesn't just mean believing, it means belonging. We were created for this. We were made for this. It means that on the cross, with his blood, Jesus purchased not only our salvation, not only a relationship with God, but a membership in his family, a place in his family. And that's a place that no one can take from us. He already won it. We don't have to deal with fear of rejection or feeling lonely. We don't have to be scared or anxious about people betraying us in this family because Jesus has already paid the price for us to belong. Amen. No one can take this place from us, and no one can fill it but us. Each one of us has a place that's carved out. It's us shaped. It belongs to us, and no one could fill it except for us. And when we find that place in the family of God, we find our purpose. Ephesians 4:16 says, "He makes the whole body fit together perfectly as each part does its own special work." He makes the whole body fit together perfectly, meaning everyone has a place. As each part does its own special work, everyone has a purpose. See, what Paul is communicating here is that we discover our role in life through our relationships with others, through our relationships with our family members, with our fellow believers. It's the same way that the role of father becomes really, really clear when you spend time with your kids. No? Teaching them, providing for them, protecting them. The role of brother or sister, it only becomes clear after you've spent some time with your siblings, right? Playing together, learning from one another. The occasional fist fight. Is that just my family? Oh, okay, sorry. My bad, sorry. See, each family member's role becomes more and more defined as the relationships become more and more developed. That's how it works in our earthly families. That's how it works in our heavenly family. That's how it works in our church family. To be honest with you, I had no idea that I was going to be doing ministry as my job, as my career path. Like, no way. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know where I fit in. I didn't know where my calling was, but I did not think it was on a stage. I didn't think it was with a microphone. I did not think it was in any sort of role at a church. Like Zane said last week, I guess the joke is on me. Like, the water of my future was murky at best. I really couldn't see where I was going. It wasn't until I started attending the youth group at my local church. I got to know people. I let them get to know me. Shortly after I started attending, the pastor actually called it out in me. He said, "You're going to be a preacher." And while it would take a while before I accepted the calling, I discovered it almost instantly after I made the decision to start spending time with other Christians. After I made the decision to start filling my place in the church. We discover our role through our relationships with others. Now, by show of hands, how many of you have felt stuck in a situation and you didn't get any clarity, you didn't get any breakthrough, you couldn't take a step forward in your faith or in your life until you sat down and had a conversation with another believer or had somebody pray for you? Show of hands. A lot of us, right? That's been our experience. Hebrews 10:25 says this: don't forsake the assembling of yourselves together, ourselves actually together, as is the manner of some. Don't miss out on being with each other like some other people are doing, but exhorting one another, encourage each other, so much more as you see the day approaching. Do it with an increasing sense of urgency as it gets closer and closer to the day that Jesus comes back. See, when it says assembly, it's referring to meeting together like we're doing right now. We're in assembly, we've assembled, but let's kind of shift the focus and think about assembly like how you would fix Legos together to make, a thing, to make something. You put them together, you attach them, and it forms strong bonds, and you assemble something, right? You build something. What he's really saying is, let's never stop attaching ourselves together because we grow spiritually through our relationships with one another. We grow spiritually through relationships with one another. There's a reason we didn't get breakthrough until we reached out to somebody. There's a reason we didn't get breakthrough until we called on one of our relationships, one of our brothers and sisters, one of our family members. And please bear with me because this example is kind of graphic, but like in a movie, when tragedy strikes, it actually happens more in comedies than in action movies. You'll get me in a second. An accident happens and somebody like loses a body part. Like I was watching a movie last weekend. It's called Drill Bit Taylor. He got his pinky cut off by a samurai sword. I know that's gross. I know it's gross. Just bear with me. Somebody gets a part of their body cut off and it's on the floor. The paramedics get there. And what's the number one priority? We got to get this thing on ice and we got to get it reattached, right? Otherwise what? It dies. It dies. When it's separated from the body, it only has a matter of time before it can be reattached before it dies. That's us when we try to do life alone as a Christian. If we try to detach ourselves from the rest of the body, if we don't intentionally commit ourselves to attaching to other believers, we're going to find a faith that's withering, that's cut off, that feels dead. But it's not over. What happens as soon as they reattach the body part, right? It regains blood flow. The tissue regenerates, and it can grow and thrive and function fully. It regains its life. It can flourish. See, there have been so many times where my faith has grown or it's taken a new step, and it wasn't because I was so spiritual. It wasn't because I knew a lot of the Bible. It was because I was attached to another believer. A member of God's family that was able to speak to me, encourage me, pray for me. It was that attachment that kept me alive in that season. So if we could do this, could we make sure that in these next couple of weeks, we're not leaving this building without being attached to somebody? It's really, really easy. Get somebody's phone number. You could fill out a connection card. You could sign up for a life group. Add them on Facebook. I don't care. These attachments are so necessary. Paul is urging them. He said, don't ever stop. In fact, commit yourselves to it because it's important. You're going to need this as we get closer and closer to Christ's return. So let's make that a priority to us. If it's a priority to Jesus, I want it to be a priority to me, right? Let's not leave here without attaching ourselves to another believer in some way or making sure that we already are. Now back to our own families. We can find our role through the relationships with our family members, and we can grow together as we stay attached. But in order for the family to keep moving, in order for the family to be all that it can be, somebody's got to pay the bills, right? Somebody's got to take out the trash. Somebody's got to do dishes. Somebody's got to make dinner. Families can thrive in their relationships, but they still have practical needs that need to be met. And what do? We trust God to provide, but what does He use for the provision? He uses the members of the family. Somebody makes dinner. Somebody signs the rent check. Somebody takes the trash out. Somebody does the dishes. Somebody does the laundry. And it's not exactly responsibilities we can phone in, right? Students, how would your parents feel if you tried to call your cousin over to do your chores? They probably wouldn't be about that. No, we each have responsibilities to each other. God loves to meet the practical needs of his family with the members of the family. We grow together and as individuals when we serve one another. There's a story where Jesus is preaching all day in this open field. It's a really remote location, and the people that he's talking to are so captivated with what he has to say that they stay out there all day. Literally all day. They forget to eat. That's how important it was for them to hear what Jesus had to say. They forgot to eat. So the disciples, being as practically minded individuals as they are, they go up to Jesus and they say, first of all, great job. You killed. You always do. You had him eating out of the palm of your hand. I mean, they were here all day. But they were here all day. So let's go ahead and send them home now. That way they can hit up Whataburger, they can hit up McDonald's, they can grab something to eat before they go home, before it's too late and everything's closed down. And Jesus kind of looks at them like, what are you talking about? You feed them. You feed them. See, the disciples, whether they realized it or not, were trying to pass off their responsibility to somewhere else. They were trying to outsource it. And Jesus says, no. This is your responsibility. I want to use you in this situation. And so what does he do? He says, however much food we have, bring it through. It was 5 loaves, 2 fish, right? Most of us have probably heard this story. And we think, oh man, how amazing is Jesus. Like, he does this miracle. He brings something out of nothing. He feeds 5,000 plus people with just a couple loaves and a couple fish. But you read the story and you realize all Jesus does is bless it, thank God for it, break it, give it to the disciples, and then they distribute it. See, Jesus did the miracle. The power came from him, but the disciples were the ones that walked it out. God used the people. He used the people to meet the practical needs of the people, and it was miraculous. See, not only did they get to experience God's provision, which was amazing in and of itself, but they got to be a part of it. They got to partake in it. They got to partner with God to do a miracle. Like, how many of us want to say that we've done that we got to partner with God to do a miracle? If you go on to read, these people were never the same after this. They were so amazed. They were so transformed by what God had done through them that they actually chased Jesus around a whole sea and beat him to the other side to catch him when he made it to the other side in a boat. Like, they were never the same because they were willing to take some bread, break it, and pass it down. They were willing to serve one another. They were willing to take part in God meeting the needs of the family. And because of that, they were never the same. In Genesis, we have the story of creation, and I think all of us are probably familiar with that. God says, let there be light, and there's light, and he says, that's good. Then he calls the waters to separate from the sea. So there's the heavens, and then there's the seas, and then he calls land, and then he calls these creatures. There's birds in the air. There's fish in the sea. There's animals that run on the ground. And every time he makes something, what does he cap off the creation with? What does he call it? Good, right? He calls it good. He does this multiple times. You start to notice a pattern. Everything he creates is good. Everything he makes is good. And then we see the first ever not good thing. The first time, the only time that God makes something and says it's not good is when he made man. He makes man and he's proud. Don't get him wrong, he's proud of the creation. The creation is good. But he says, no, it's not good that he's alone. It is not good for man to be alone, to do life alone, to do life by himself, isolated. This isn't New Testament. This is Old Testament. This is the first few pages of the Bible. This has been part of the fabric of our DNA. This has been part of the heart of our God since the beginning. He's always desired community for us. He's always desired life together. And that's what he's called us to. That's why the title of this message is We Are Family. Because we are. And the only way that we can reach our potential as a family unit, is if we start to embrace the relationships around us so that we might discover our role, discover the part that we play. Embrace the relationships around you. Sign up for a life group. It's so easy. It's so easy. Go and get coffee with somebody. Have a phone call, anything. And watch what God does. Watch what he reveals in your life. Man, when you're in a jam, when you're going through something, when you feel stuck, reach out. Call on one of these relationships. You'll see yourself grow in ways that you could never grow by yourself. And lastly, let's accept our responsibility to one another. I have a responsibility to you. You have a responsibility to me. We have a responsibility to each other, to serve one another. Let's do that. Let's find ways to do that. You can join a serve group, you can join the greeter team, or you can just look for random little opportunities. And watch what God does with that. Watch what God does with that. Can we all stand? Church, as we go into the response time, the communion tables are going to be open. The altar here is going to be open. And we'll have our prayer team up here that'll be ready to partner with you and pray with you through anything. And let's just ask God what he wants to do with us in this family. Let's ask God, is this where you want me, God? Is this my family? And if the answer is yes, let's go all in. Let's go all in. Let's not hold anything back. And let's see what God does. Let's respond right now.